Well, okay. I'm gonna try today and make a video that, something I've promised to make for, well, I promised to make it quite a while ago, and I've just never gotten around to it. Video regarding central vacs. Because, as some of you may know, I collect them. I've always been fascinated with them. They've always fascinated me. A lot of people, I don't know, collector-wise, don't seem to have that fascination with them. I guess they tend to find them, more or disconnected because the unit's mounted somewhere outside of the user experience. It kind of loses some of the what they find interesting. It's all different. Every collector kind of has a different sort of interaction with them. But to me, they're fascinating. They're powerful. They're different. They're kind of unique. They're not canister. They're not upright. And there've been so many different designs over the years. I mean, they're not all just cans mounted on the wall in the garage with a motor in it. They're very different, as you can see. You've got everything from this Filtex here. I don't know if you can see. It's kind of back in a dark corner. Where it's sort of all in one large unit. You've got the older Filtexes, the motors out on the side. You've got this deal here, this Black & Decker, the Kenmore, which is a Cyclonic, no filter. It has a screen in it, but no filter. And then you get into filtered Cyclonic central vacs, and currently this is my collection of them now, minus another Kenmore and the Riccar I have installed in the house, which I will go out and show you guys. I guess where I'll start is I'll turn on a couple of these. Let's see what I can do. I cannot turn on this this is actually a 3-motor Filtex. Yes, it has 3, I believe, 2-stage Lamb peripheral bypass 240-volt motors. It's 240 volt. I don't have 240 volts in the basement, only out in the garage. Sometime I could make a video of that, but it really doesn't sound much unlike my Riccar unit, which you will hear towards the end of the video. Well, I guess before I start turning them on and listen, I guess I'll talk a little bit about. There's a lot of people collectors that have asked me a lot of things about central vacs, like how they work, what turns them on and off, blah blah blah, these kind of things. So I guess I'll talk about different inlets, different pipe systems, because not all. The vast majority of central vac systems that have ever been installed use 2-inch thin wall PVC, but that is not all. The 2 that I know use their own unique size are 2 that I actually have. There may be more, but I think these are the only 2 that really did that. One of them is the Kenmore system. It actually used a much smaller pipe. I can't remember. I think it was like 1 3/8, something like that. I may be wrong. I don't remember exactly. Ooh, gross. We've got ourselves a filthy Hoover 541 brush roll. I got a new, re-bristled in the wrapper brush roll and put in it, and I didn't bother cleaning the old one it came with. I've had that vacuum. It's one of my earliest collection members for sure. It's been around here for quite some time. No, been around in my possession for quite some time. Rainbow. That's the other thing. They've also, to me, the attachments, of course, which are another thing that differentiate the user experience. There's been so many different styles of attachment. Everything from the old Filtex tools that were used on the Filtex to other things. But as you can see, that's the size of the pipe. Not the best presentation here. Let's see if I can pull this out. But that's, I've got inlets sitting out. I'll show you the inlet too with the pipe on it. But it's just a cyclonic unit. There is simply a screen in there. I'm not going to open up this. This is a General Electric. I guess we'll just introduce them all. This is a General Electric, made by Beam. This is sort of a mid-60s. I have the brochure for it as well. A copy of the brochure that Mike Banta was... Is it Mike Banta that sent me? No, Mark Turbyfill sent me. It was Mike Banta that had seen one of these before. Used General Electric attachments, same that you'd find on the GE canisters of that era. I need to get a spare set of attachments, and then I'm going to make up a hose and attachment set for it to match it. But it's just a standard Beam with the inverting cloth bag filter. Basically, it's a cloth bag filter, almost cone-shaped, but not quite, with a weight sewn, sandbag weight, or sometimes chunks of metal, just a weight sewn into the middle. The idea being, you know, when you turn the vacuum on, it sucks it up into this area here, and when it turns off, the weight's supposed to make it fall down and knock the dirt off of it. The problem being, the bag just kind of gently floats. If the bag would actually be able to fall down with enough force for it to, you know, fall and, you know, snap the fabric, it would knock the dust off, but it doesn't. It just kind of gently floats to the bottom. It doesn't really knock the dirt off of it at all. It's not really what I would call the best design. This one came to me without a motor, and it didn't have the little bolts that go through here and hold it. I got a motor for it. This is the motor it's supposed to use. A 7-inch Lamb electric Amtech Lamb motor. This is what they call a tangential discharge. This is a tangent. This is what they call a non-loading fan motor, meaning it's kind of it's a two-stage. There's two fans. Between the two there is a stationary fan, but after the final fan, in this case would be the second stage, there's no stationary fan up here in the housing. It simply blows out. You know, the housing is designed sort of like what you'd see on a Kirby or Royal or any other, you know, direct air fan housing, and it just goes out the exhaust. Very powerful motor, very durable motor, sort of the standard, I would say, the old standby, still used in most single motor central vacuum systems. All single motor systems that are of any worth, as far as if it's not a piece of junk, it has one of these motors in them. Some will have smaller motors, but that's not necessarily the best way to go. Very well made, not cheap, very well made though. Long-lasting motor. Same motor that is in the Kenmore. And here you can see, also described for those that don't know, all central vacuums, well, all more modern style central vacuums, let's say from about the 50s to today. Previous to that, there were all sorts of things that had different relay systems. They were all very unique, and I don't really have a huge grasp of the knowledge of those things. But all more modern central vacs use a low voltage control system. So you have in here a transformer that turns 110 volts or 240 volts, depending on the unit's input voltage. Turns that into about 24 volts DC. It could be AC, I don't know. About 24 volts. And leads out to the unit. This one I just have some Cat 5 wire that I rigged up. And it runs this, as you'll see on my Riccar system that I have installed. Sorry for the lighting back here. It's just a dark little corner. I don't really know what to do about it. I really wish I had more light back here. I really do, but as you can see, it's kind of crowded. I moved everything out of the way best I could, but you have, anyway, back to the subject at hand. You have the inlet. There was a little sleeve in there that I stole out. I need to put back in so this will fit right in there. And on the inlet, the wiring connects to two connections. All modern inlets are what they call contact inlets, meaning when you open this is just a standard inlet. I'll show you later what a direct connect inlet is, but we'll get to that later. A contact inlet. You have these two little contacts in there. You know, each wire leads to a contact, and when you plug the hose in, you either have a metal end, a completely metal end, a metal ring on the plastic or rubber cuff, or two contacts that touch those. For the ones with the metal end or the metal ring on it, basically it immediately completes this circuit, which goes back in and trips the solenoid in the relay, which puts the electrical contacts together, turns on your motor. And that's how they're controlled. There were some other... They all use some form of this low voltage system. Most of them use the same type of relay. However, some older systems, like this Philtex here, the gray hammer tone one, not the blue one, use what's called a latching relay, which the relays in most of these, as long as the circuit is complete, the contacts remain engaged and this vacuum is on. As soon as you break the circuit, it turns off. These used a system that what they called a latching relay. So basically, you made momentary contact, the solenoid would click a switch in there, and the contacts would remain contacted again until you activated the solenoid again, and then it unlatched it. Kind of the best comparison I can make is to this tank vacuum here, where you have a push switch. You push on, push off. The solenoid basically, imagine an electric solenoid pushing on a switch like that. So you did not have the circuit completed constantly. Most of the inlets that had that were called push button and light inlets. I'll show you those. They're different. They don't make those anymore. So that's kind of a vintage thing. I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. Well, I'll show you some inlets. Well, here, first, I'm all over the place on this. So much to show, so little time. Well, I'll show you on the one out in the garage, actually, but it's just a Cyclonic. Basically what you have in there, there's from the top where the motor sits, there's a tube, well, let's say 3-4 inch tube coming down. The bottom third of it is screen, like a mesh. And then there's a large flat disc running around there with the space about this far around. The dirt comes in, Cyclonic spins around. It's supposed to go spin around, go to the outside of that disc, fall down, and stay down there. And then the screen keeps everything from collecting on in the motor, you know, hair and things of that nature. But it was not necessarily the best idea. The better systems used a real cyclone system, like what a Dyson, you know, a single cyclonic Dyson or a Phantom would use, something more of that nature, where you have, it's just a big cyclone. Those work better. This was not the most effective. This would be the Filtex. I'll show you this one because that one's kind of buried, but for the Filtex bag setup, basically you had, this was the one interesting way. There's so many different ways of making the machine. This one is, you know, you've got the latches on the side here. I think this one's actually undone even to make things nicer for us. So you just lift up on this and surprise, vacuum parts. But they take a large paper bag, and basically to get the dirt up into the dirt container, you just simply have this assembly. The pipe is attached to this elbow here, runs up, there's a gasket there, and it runs up and over into the bag. This system here, basically, now this is the one, I wish I don't have any way of turning it on. There's no switch on it, but it's extremely loud. It's very unique central vacuum. I don't know, I just wish I had more room. I wish I at one point had them all, before I redid everything here, had them all set up to be used. But, oh well. Inlets. All sorts of different inlets. This here is the inlet that goes with the blue Filtex. The 3-motor Filtex would use the same inlet that I showed you on the GE. This is the original Filtex automatic inlet, as they called it. There's the switch. It's got a spring-loaded door. There's the switch there, that button. And when the door closes, it hits the switch and turns the vacuum off. And they said Filtex. In the 80s, a company called Airflow that private labeled modern day manufacturing central vacs. I have one installed at work for a workbench vacuum, which is nice. Use these inlets, copies of the Filtex inlet, but plastic backing plate instead of metal. Same micro switch setup, but instead of being spring-loaded, they're held closed by magnets. Same door, doesn't say Filtex on it. Same kind of switch button. Push button and light. This is what goes with the latching inlet. We also have a chrome one here. Came in all sorts of different colors. Still do. You can still get metal inlets in all kinds of colors. Where was I with this? Oh yeah, push button and light. This is what goes with the latching inlet. You push this button, turns it on, the light glows. It's a 4-wire system, so you'd have a 4-wire bundle going through the walls from to each inlet from the unit. Lights on. Push the button again, light turns off, so does the inlet, or unit. And same old inlet type there. Kenmore inlet. gravity held closed. You mounted them like this. Lift it up, plug the hose in. Small sized pipe, Kenmore proprietary pipe. 1.25 inch inlet opening, same as the attachment end of the hose. There's basically a leaf switch, which basically means there's two flat copper contacts. And the hinge of this door, basically, it's just I guess there's a latch snaps in there on the little plastic thing. Right there you can see the little switch. There's a little cam. Open it up, it pushes those contacts together, turns it on, close it, separates, turns off. Black & Decker, that big funny looking one. Very odd. And that was the other one I have that uses a proprietary size pipe. Slightly larger pipe than the Kenmore, but still not the 2-inch pipe that is industry standard today. Spring held closed. Now this one is activated by their inside. You can see there's 3 little ball bearing, spring-loaded ball bearing type deals that there's a groove in the metal end. It snaps in. That's what holds it in. And it has to hold it in because there's a big flat flange ring on there that when it's pushed in there, it hits this button. As long as the hose is plugged in, this button is pressed, which activates the little switch, leaf switch thing there. Turns it on. And finally, vacuum aid. I don't have a vacuum aid unit. There's another metal inlet. There's the little micro switch. This one works by you open it, and actually it'd be mounted this way. You open it, plug the hose in, and this will just use a rubber hose cuff, just like the Filtex inlets. And it would push that little ball bearing, which activates, pushes on the switch, starting and stopping the motor. This is basically what you'll find in the vast majority of various central vac systems. Of course, the majority will be the contact inlets like I showed you on that. But the other ones are definitely out there. Definitely a lot of metal contact inlets. Now the next, and this is one of a modern inlet you will find, and there's 2 companies that make these. There's the Hayden Electro Valve, and there's the Vaculine Electro Valve. Very similar sounding names, off only by a letter. Of course, excuse the mess that is the basement. These are the Vaculine Electro Valves. The difference being the sort of the look of the plate's a little bit different. Contact inlets. These also have a 110 volt connection right there for your power nozzle. Out here in the garage, right on the other side of this wall is the living room, and they're watching a movie, and you can really hear that too. This is my Riccar RPU C10 unit, early production model. I bought these when they first came out. Bought it, and I guess one of the early users of this. It's a 2-motor, 240 volt unit. Figure out what all to say about it. No valve on the machine. This is a contact valve. This is also known as a utility valve. Basically, it's just installed into the pipe. The valve just basically plugs right in to any 2-inch PVC fitting right there. Just as a 2-inch back, glue it straight into the fitting and connect your low voltage wire, and it's basically just a fully functioning contact inlet. This being the hose. Now we can listen to it. It's kind of loud. It's really not that loud. It's just noisy. It's got mufflers on it. You can tell it's got very good suction. This is a Cyclonic unit. It has a large, I don't know if I can peek in there and not make a mess. See, that's a large HEPA filter in there. And that's Teflon coated HEPA filter. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to. And it's just a large dirt can. Excuse me while I latch that back together. And then it's just a large dirt can there. Very well-made units, very powerful. Next time I'll probably end up going with a bagged unit. I'm going to flip this piece of pipe around. Basically what I'm going to do is cut it right in the middle of right there, and then cut it right there, flip it around so that it goes up against the wall, then comes out, up and over. Because I don't know what the installers were doing. That just kind of looks tacky. I don't know why they didn't do it the other way around in the first place. It would have looked a lot neater. I have the fittings inside. I just haven't gotten the time to do it. Basically just those little clips hold the wire to the pipe, and undo that so the wire's out of the way. Take a hacksaw, cut it nice and straight. Take the pipe off, clean it up, deburr all of it. Use the little connectors, connect in, put it back, glue it together, and it'll be done. Looking a lot neater. Much better. This unit, another thing I was going to say, this one does not use Lamb motors. It uses two 5-inch Domel electromotors. The unique thing about them is they use both stages, it's 2-stage, and both fans are, they call vortex fans, which essentially means they are they start out deeper in the middle and they kind of taper out at the outside. Better airflow is what that creates. This here is a Kenmore unit that we can sort of pull out, and you can see the aged flex tube. I actually have a large, normally this pile of crap is not here and there's a car parked here. But on Craigslist for $65, a guy was selling that unit and all that pipe that he pulled out of his house. So I have a bunch of the no longer made pipe, so I can, set up a play-sized system whenever I have the place to do so, which will be fun. Naturally, it's been here a while, so it's a lot of crap on it. I'm gonna go ahead and try to show you. This one has not been cleaned out. I have not done anything to this since getting it, partly because tell it, go away, go away. Okay, there's the dirt bin. It has been emptied, but all right, here's the big disc that I was talking about. You've got this clip that holds it on. I don't feel like fighting it. You can see in here the screen, which is covered in crap. There's the tube that goes up to where the machine enters the motor. And it's the same 7-inch 2-stage motor as the yellow one downstairs. Same machine, just different color, really. Now here we have the attachments that go with the Riccar central vac, not this hose. And here is the hose that plugs into the direct connect inlets. Each of these touches a separate contact button and is connected to a wire that goes through the hose and meet at the switch, so that way it can be controlled without just plugging the hose in or not. This one just has the low voltage contacts leading to wires to go through to a switch here, so you actually can have control of that. Very interesting, unique hose. Had to have it. I think I only paid $25 for it. That's a 35-foot hose. The standard is 30. This one has a vac sock, a beam vac sock on it, which I love. It's wonderful. It really is.